So, welcome to our third Patent Insight series powered by depa.tech and MTC Berlin. So today, the weather is getting better, right? Even in Berlin through the spring. So we really miss to see the sunshine. And I think we are ready for discussing more niche topics. As you can discover from the topic of this webinar, this videocast is we will focus on patent trends, patent landscape in automotive industry, and more importantly, we will focus on standard essential patents, which is very, very important topic in nowadays in this connectivity era, right? So I have a very distinguished, very experienced speaker, co-founder, friend today. Tim Pohlmann will be with us today. So I will invite him to the stage in a few minutes. But before starting today in our third webinar, third videocast, this is the YouTube channel live stream, as you know that. From the previous events. So you can use the chat section in the YouTube to ask your questions, to directly address your remarks, suggestion, comments, anything by writing in the chat site. So during our presentations, during our, the chat with team, you can always write your directly leave your comments and questions in the chat site, and then we will answer them together with Tim. So some reminding before starting, as you know that we are publishing weekly Patent Insights newsletter. So you can directly join depa.tech.substack.com, as you can see in the text below. So you are always welcome to join, subscribe to receive our weekly content to become a better patent leader, because our main purpose is to provide you very informative, comprehensive information, news around the global patent ecosystem. And then we are trying to bring this information to your inbox every week to help you to become a better patent leader, to become a better patent discovery expert, patent strategy expert, patent commercialization expert. So that's why we are organizing this kind of events. So this webinar is also part of this organization. So I don't want to make it longer. I want to invite Dr. Tim Pohlmann, who is co-founder of IPlytics, which is 8 or 9 years old startup. We can hear from Tim, and let me invite him to the stage, and then we can have a chat with Tim. Welcome, Tim.
Hello, Mustafa, and thank you so much for inviting me. Yes, IPlytics was founded in 2014, so it's.
So I remember correctly.
Right, but yeah, it's good to be here. And as you say, the sun is out. I'm in Berlin too. Everyone gets ready for the Easter break. But before that, I think it's exciting to hear what you and I have to say today. So I'm really excited to join this. And again, thanks for the kind introduction and invitation.
Thank you so much as well from my side to host you in our third Patent Insight webinar. And today's topic is very interesting. So we are living in a different era in terms of the rising of artificial intelligence, rising of connectivity technologies. So I prefer to indicate automotive, the new type automotive, as a running smart device. Right, some of the players in the market also expressing themselves as a not automotive. They are expressing themselves as a smart device. So being a smart device on the road requires something, and there are some responsibilities and obligations to follow and obey the rules. So that's why today's topic will be so exciting for the experts who are running in the automotive industry, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think I would even use another word. People use the smartphone on wheels. That's the most famous I keep hearing. But yeah, I think that's an exciting topic. And I can tell you when we founded IPlytics, because that's that going back to that date, we have approached all the automotives and told them all about you need to care about SEPs and standards. And everyone was like, no, that's not for us. We have our suppliers, they deal with this. That's not a topic that is of priority to us, and I think that changed today. Connectivity is everywhere, in particular in the automotive and transportation world, and connectivity means connectivity standards, and many of those are subject to SEPs. So there's a lot of things we can talk about.
Definitely. So all the spotlights now in the automotive industry. So we are following the litigation cases that the patent owner out of automotive industry suing the automotive manufacturers. So there are lots of cases, and all these are related with standard essential patents. So I'm really excited to hear your insights and information about this topic. But before that, if you don't mind, I will present some of the general overview of the automotive industry in terms of patent data. So I would like to give some information about the patent landscape and trends that we analyzed with the patent data, more than 8 million patent data in the automotive industry. I will be very quickly as possible, and then I will back to you to listen your insights and information about SEPs.
Great, looking forward, Mustafa.
All right, Tim is here also as well, and you can directly ask your questions and make your comments in the chat site during while I'm presenting or team presenting. So before going back to the team's presentation, I will give some overview about the patent trends and patent landscape in the automotive industry. So there are millions of patents already published in automotive industry, which means that 8.2 million patents are available to search and to track, to view, to understand what's going on in your industry. So it is a huge amount of published patents in the automotive industry. But the number of the published patents is not enough to understand this industry, this competitive environment. So we need to look at which patents or which amount of patents are alive, which means are still have an enforcement in at least one country, or which amount of patents are dead. So we see that more than half of the published patents in the automotive industry are dead. So only the 34 or 35% of these patents are still alive in at least one country. So, these alive and dead in statistics, we should also look at the annual growing rates in terms of the patent application numbers every year in automotive-related technologies. So we can say that, as expected, the patent families published every year is increasing, except last year. So these are the red line is describing the patent families in terms of the earliest publication only. So it's increasing. But if you look at in the last 5 years, 5-year period, we see that around 90% of growth, which means that doubled in the last 5 years. So it means that with the growing of AI, with the growing of connectivity technologies, all these supplementary affecting technologies in the automotive industry is helping to increase of these numbers, right? 90% of growth is a good number. But of course, we also have to look into the alive and dead patents in the granted patents. So this portion of alive and dead patents in the granted patents is changing. So remember in my previous alive and dead proportion, so it is almost opposite. So in the granted patents, more than 25% of the patents are still alive, they have enforcement in at least one country. So this is really important to see that. And also the litigation ecosystem in the automotive industry is really, really big. around double in comparison with the pharmaceutical industry. So we have 22K litigation cases in at least one patent in automotive industry. So it is very intense and hot industry in terms of infringements and any litigation cases. And also we have to look at the territories, which countries are really getting attraction from the patent owners to protect their inventions. So this indication is also showing us which markets are more important than the others. So if you look at the jurisdictions, that it means that the publication countries of each patents are showing us as a grant application, in terms of the granted application, China is leading. Of course, the domestic application from China is also affecting this number, but China is leading territory. The second one is United States, and the third one is Japan, and fourth one is Germany, and fifth is France. So two of them are from the European countries, and two of them from Asia, and one is from North America. So this is really important to see the territories. How about the leadership board, who are leading this patent race in automotive industry? It's also good to see this competitive environment, and maybe some of you are expecting Toyota is leading this leadership board, and Hyundai is in the second position, Mitsubishi in the third position. But these are the published patents. But if you look at the alive and granted patents, this leadership board is changing a little bit. So the next slide is showing us the active patent portfolio in terms of granted and alive, at least one country. So as you can see that Honda and Denso is going up in the leadership board, and the Ford and General Motors is entering into this leadership board, because they were not in the list in the previous slides in terms of the all patent portfolio. This is really good to see that the leaders, but it's not enough. We have to check the rising stars who are increasing their patent portfolio, from last year to this year. In 1 year, there are some rising star companies are increasing their patent applications in the automotive industry. Who are they? They are Shangwan Automotive, which I really heard the first time, and Great Wall Motor, TVS Motor, Geely, and FAW Group. They all increased their patent applications, doubled in the last year. So we have to pick this kind of, growing companies in the specific industry. So before closing my presentation, I would like to also show some of the technological developments in terms of the patent publications. So we divided this patent trends into three main pillars. One is mega, the second one is macro, and the third one is the micro trends. So maybe we can start with the mega trends. It's a broader technological classifications we extracted in terms of the growth rate in the last 5 years. So you see that the machine learning neural networks are indicated in the computing arrangement-based specific computational models, which is in the first rank. And the second one is the climate change. The third one is wireless technologies. Fourth one is image data processing, mostly integrated with the autonomous technologies, recognizing the objects on the road, and electrically conductive connections, and also the climate change mitigation technologies related to transportation. These are all still growing for the last year, and also in terms of the growth rate in the last 5 years. These are the mega broader classification of the patent trends in the automotive industry. But how about in the middle side, which we call it as a macro trends? We are narrowing the technology classification. And if you look at these macro trends, we see that radio navigation, lidar systems, control systems for the road vehicle, estimation or calculation of the driving parameters, or energy generation through the renewable energies, includes all the batteries and other stuff, and also image analysis. But it is not enough to see that in macro trends. We need to go into narrow, which we can see the detailed technology groups or segments. We call it as a micro trends. So you can see that in the last 5 years, as a growth rate, 500 to 5,100% growth in neural networks and combination of neural networks. All these are related about neural networks, machine learning, or image processing by using neural networks, image analysis by using neural networks, machine learning, or Tim also will also mention about these wireless communication networks in the vehicle to everything, vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to vehicle technologies. If we can go narrow into wireless technologies, right? Lidar systems for mapping or imaging, mostly related with the autonomous technologies, but it's never ending. So these 5 years growth as a micro trends, we have lots of topics and technology segments in the table. So I will also share this presentation in the YouTube description part to be downloaded. And I would like to end my presentation in this time. So please don't forget to subscribe our newsletters. So we are publishing this kind of contents every week to help you to become a better patent leader. So we see the main structure, the main landscape, but it is not enough to see that information. There are a big, giant topic here. So 5 years ago, maybe it was a niche topic, but now it's not niche. It's very important core, core topic in the automotive industry. So I would like to turn back to Tim to discuss this topic. So you established your company 9 years ago. How did you notice this niche topic 9 years ago, and now it's a bigger topic?
I mean, I think, of course, 9 years ago it was a niche, or not even a topic at all in the auto industry. Well, of course, in the telecommunications world, it was also 10 years ago a topic. And I think some people remember the smartphone wars. That was 10 years ago. And the smartphone wars were already about SEPs, right? So even back then, big topic. But of course, only for a very specific industry, right? Smartphones, I mean, we have in the world 5 to 10 big smartphone manufacturers, right? So even though that was an emerging market and very lucrative market, it was just one industry. And no one outside of the industry really cared about standards, or in particular SEPs. No one even knew what it was. Some were curious, but it didn't affect anyone. And I think that is exactly what changed. When we started the company of IPlytics, nowadays, the technology is still the same in terms of we're still talking about cellular or wireless or image coding, decompression technologies, but the applications have changed, right? And that is, I think, the big difference today, because now everything is connected or will be connected. And we have now new industries that we discuss too. We have clients from all over the place now. I mean, it's not only automotive, it's also smart metering now. It is machine to machine. It is even tracking in logistics. There's so many applications now that are based on connectivity, and those based on standards, and those based on SEPs. So I think that is the big difference to when we started, and now people listen finally and look at the data and understand now better the reasons why they have to care.
And in terms of the following these standard essential patents, IPlytics is the one solution to monitor this SAP data, right?
Indeed. IPlytics is a database or a solution for a database of so-called declared essential patents, pooled patents, also for the actual standard documents, the standard contributions, basically providing access where SEPs and standards matter. So we are really at the intersection of connecting and marrying together world of patents and standards, which is not an easy task to do because it's a complex world. But that's where we specialized on right from the beginning, and that's what IPlytics has been known for the past years.
Exactly. And now it's time to see some insights and information about this topic, right? So I am sharing your slides and making your picture right here. And now we are ready. So Tim, I'm leaving the stage to you. So our audience, around 50 people now alive in our YouTube channel watching you. And now stage is yours.
Great. Well, thank you, Mustafa. And I think I want to pick up exactly where you ended. Your trends, super interesting. And most of the technologies in your trends were, of course, somehow connected to the world of SEPs and standards. As you already said, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, in general, wireless technologies, but also video and image coding. All of these are technologies that are based on standards and SEPs. Just for the audience, for those of you where this topic is new, standard essential patents is one that one would use when implementing a standard like 5G or Wi-Fi or RFID or Bluetooth or a video codec standard. A video codec standard is, by the way, right now, taking my high resolution picture and video, transferring it over the internet to you at home and decompressing it for you. So we already are using all the standards that I will be talking about as we speak here. I want to also give you trends, similar like Mustafa, to get started with. And basically, the first trend I want to show you is the number of worldwide patent families that have been declared or pooled to be essential. And you see how sharp this bar chart is here. So we have an increase of the number of those patents by factor 5 to 6 of the past 10 years. So the pure number of those patents has been increasing, which is basically a sign, connected again with Mustafa's trends in automotive also, that connectivity is, one of the majority or the major technical topics that we are seeing in the industries. What also is interesting is that not only the number of patents increased, also the number of patent holders increased. And that is in particularly interesting in the space of SEPs, because one thing with SEPs, if everyone implements standards like 5G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, video codec, and all these new technologies, they're implementing patented solutions. And those patented solutions, they have to eventually then pay royalties for. So it does matter who owns those patents, because those are the ones that will receive the royalties. And obviously, you can imagine the more companies that own those patents, the more complex it gets. So also the number of companies in the market that own SEPs has been increasing. And we have been, even in that statistic, been quite conservative. We said we only want to look at a portfolio of at least 10 patent families that are declared or pooled essential. So even if you are, limiting it to that threshold, we have over 250 companies. And also that has been increasing over the past 10 years by factor 2.6. Also interesting, who are those companies that own SEPs? And I can tell you these are the largest of the largest. So the top 30 worldwide patent owners, 93% of them own at least 10 families of SEPs. Look at the top 40 or top 50, the share is still high. And if you look at the share of those companies who do not own SEPs, these are typical chemical companies, pharmaceutical companies, right? Those are industries and technologies that probably don't relate much to connectivity yet. But as you can see, the larger automotives all own already SEPs themselves, right? Because they are part of developing the next, let's say, V2X technologies. And that is really what connectivity looks like. The car that is connected to other cars, that is connected to a charging station, that is connected to a traffic light, that connects to your phone. And I thought it was super interesting. There was an event here in Berlin. It's like 7 or 8 years ago also. And it was just at the beginning of car sharing. I was one first user of Share Now or a Car2Go back then. And I was on a panel, and there was one guy saying, one day you will open your car with a smartphone. And I said, I opened the car with a smartphone this morning. I used car sharing. That's how you open a car, with your phone, right? So the technology is there since years, right? I mean, it's nothing super new. It's just, the first use cases have been growing, and the significance of that is only apparent today. But the technology was there, over the years already. And the car of the future will be connected with all of these things. And of course, connectivity will gain in importance, right? It starts with some smaller use cases like car sharing, or like you have a digital access to your radio or telematics, or you update your maps, right? Those are small first cases, but of course that will increase. And I think the biggest automotive trends we've seen that will be connected to SEPs and connectivity is, first of all, also electrification. Electrification is only possible when we have a great infrastructure of charging stations. And charging stations, you need to know which ones are occupied and which ones are not, or where they are in the first place. I myself today, I'm driving a hybrid car, and I can tell you in Berlin, the infrastructure is not very well yet. And I have to see always on my map, where is the next charging station? Is it occupied? Is it not occupied? Those information are only possible through connectivity, obviously. Car sharing, that example I just gave you, market is only increasing, especially in cities. Why should you own a car? You can share cars. You can now book Teslas here in Berlin. That's pretty exciting. I've been driving Teslas for the past month. That's available now. So that's of course only possible when you have a system on your phone that connects to the car, allows you to open, to close the booking. All of that needs connectivity. And of course, the biggest topic of all is probably the advanced driving assistance systems, until we have cars that autonomously drive. But also there, that will heavily rely on connectivity to exchange information with other cars. But also, I'll give you later some examples of image recognition, which are important there as well. I think some people keep asking me how big and how important is the use case for cars actually compared to smartphones. And I then give them typically those statistics. In 2028, the growth in mobile traffic data that came from 5G, will all come from 5G, and 4G is declining. For smartphones, this will be in the 19 gigabytes by 2023, and maybe in the 46 gigabytes by 2028, right? And that's growing by 96%. But if you think about an autonomously driving vehicle, that data transmission rate will generate 4,000 gigabytes. Compare that to the 40 gigabytes of a smartphone. And it is predicted to even go up to 40,000 gigabytes. So the amount of data that will be exchanged to make autonomously driving cars possible is by a multitude of numbers higher than for a smartphone. So if you think of future use cases, the car is even more connected than your phone, right? If you think about data transmission and take that as an indicator. Why is that so? And we had that also in your statistic, Mustafa: image recognition, image classification. Autonomously driving cars can only drive autonomously when they have eyes, like humans, right? You have to see a pedestrian, you have to see a traffic light, you have to interpret and understand that traffic sign. And basically the way it works, you have high resolution cameras. They qualify and classify pictures they see, and they send that data to an algorithm, typically an AI algorithm, that understands, okay, that's how a car looks like. This is how a stop sign looks like. This is an image of a moving person. This is an image of a standing person. So those images must be high resolution, because the better the quality, the better the decision, the better the classification of those images. So we have large amounts of data, of video and pictures that are floating around to make that possible. And again, that needs rates in very high areas. Even leaving LiDAR, that was also a trend with you, Mustafa, out of it, you need 20 to 40 megabytes to make that possible. So 4G is not enough here. 5G is a start. Maybe we need even higher generations for that. And I think the same is true for other connectivity use cases. We have fleet management. We have, all these smart ways of how a technology like 5G can leverage, which needs a stable network always, which needs much higher bandwidth, but needs also latency and higher ranges to make all that possible. So now let's go and have a look at what SEPs in the automotive industry means. I mean, these are great technology trends patent trends. We're all excited. But of course, there's also, especially from the perspective of the automotive industry, there's some downside to it, or at least I would put it that way. There are some challenges with SEPs because SEPs are licensed and you have to pay the license for it. What is the major challenge? I think to start with, it's the clash of cultures. I just told you the story that 8 years ago, no one of the automotive OEMs had any idea or were interested in SEPs. And the reason for that is that their modules, their connectivity modules, are developed by their suppliers. So basically what they do is they just take that module, put it in a car. They have little understanding of the technology, or they had, to put it that way, a little understanding of the technology. And also those suppliers, they provide that technology with contracts that indemnify it, right? Basically, oh, well, we take care of the licensing. However, that's not how licensing works with SEPs and in the telecommunication industry. Telecommunication industry 10 years ago, same thing. You would license to the OEM, to the smartphone manufacturers, not to the suppliers, not to the chip manufacturers that actually have this standard in their antennas and chips, right? These are different companies. No, you would go to the Apples, to the Samsungs, to the HTCs, LGs of this world, who were the large smartphone manufacturers. And you would license on that level. And that is the practice that is still also the practice now. And that is why all the OEMs were approached and not their suppliers. And that what was creating the clash of cultures. And also you have to see that an automotive company, if you look at their patent departments, they were not even prepared for that. Their patent departments are prepared to file a lot of patents, mainly for defensive purposes, to keep competition away. Most of these patents only last 5 years. Mustafa showed that. Many of them are abandoned and not even active anymore. Why? 5 years are enough time to keep competition away. Your new car model comes out. Owning patents is expensive. You abandon those patents. So those departments were basically doing that job. They would hardly license in any other technology. They would probably never litigate. Automotives don't litigate against each other. There's typically gentleman agreements if there are some infringement cases. The only litigation that you see or did see in the automotive industries was with some NPEs, people call them patent trolls. Apart from that, no litigation, no licensing. You know, those departments were not prepared what was coming. That was coming for them is a very professional licensing team from the SEP owners suddenly asking for royalties for that. So that, of course, was for them a new situation. Again, to explain the complexity, it's really that the technology where the standard is implemented is in a connectivity box that is supplied to the automotive company. The supplier doesn't have access to SEPs. They cannot sign and get a license, at least from most of these SEP owners. So the original manufacturer is basically getting a license. The problem here is that the supplier indemnified and the OEM has to pay and negotiate. And of course, what the OEM will do, they want to share that license cost with the component manufacturer. What's the problem now for the component manufacturers? They don't have a seat at the table for the negotiation of the price, and they're basically indemnified, so they're in a very weak situation. And that all situation created what I call a clash of cultures and all the problems. But it is also complex because if you think about the whole system, you have to understand many and answer many questions. First, what is the basis of a license? You know, to determine FRAND, which is basically a price, right? Avanci asked for $15, now $20 per vehicle. Is that based on the vehicle price or the component price? For Avanci, it's a lump sum price, right? So there's no differentiation how expensive the car is. Then what's the mechanism, right? Is it a lump sum like Avanci, or is it percentage, right? Then who can take a license in the value chain, OEM or supplier? You know, what is the model? Is it a pool or is it bilateral license, right? And in the very end, the question, what is reasonable and what is excessive, right? Is $15 or $20 per car, is that excessive? A SEP owner would say, it's a car wash, you know, you wash your car on the weekend, that's how much you pay for the lifetime of a car. Then a component manufacturer will say, well, my component only cost $150. If I add $20 to that, that's excessive, right? And here we go. We have two perspectives on something that is very difficult to determine. And that caused a lot of litigation. So the past years, we did see a lot of litigation in the automotive industry, very uncommon. And as you said, Mustafa, all about SEPs. A little bit background on Avanci, maybe what they offer. As I said before, $15 was the old price. Now $20 is the new price, which would give you an aggregated royalty for 2G, 3G, and 4G and eCall technologies, excluding 5G yet. Avanci has gathered most of the SEP owners, but not all of them, right? So there are still outsiders that would license outside of Avanci, but they did gather a lot of the SEP owners. That is fair to say. To summarize that, the Avanci platform covers portfolios of 54 2G to 4G SEP owners. Avanci offers a license only to OEMs. And by summer last year, actually, they managed that almost all major car makers, except for the Chinese ones, had a license. So all automotive manufacturers agreed on a license, which is more than 80 auto brands with a total of 100 million licensed connectivity vehicles. Some will still claim, those companies in some situations took a license under the pressure of litigation, and there was a lot of pressure, and not everyone took that let's say, a voluntary basis. But that is a discussion, and there's opinions around that I don't want to even enter. I think what is now interesting to see, what will happen with 5G, right? The 5G pool has been announced on the websites for almost a year now. There are no licensing rates published yet. Even more, we do see that pools tend to provide licensing program. And by the way, Avanci likes to be called a patent platform or licensing platform, not a pool. But I call them pools, just more general term. But we do see that there are more tailored offerings of licensing. For example, what is likely going to happen, like also Avanci will offer a particular program for V2X technology only. That is just my assumption, but that's a trend that we see in the market, that technologies are sliced out of pools, right? There's an NB-IoT LTE-M pool for the use case for lower bandwidth connectivity, which is mainly used in IoT, that Sysville just published. That is also parts of 4G, but not whole 4G, right? So those 4G, 5G projects are so big and complex that likely we will see licensing of patents of particular technologies there. So how to get now insights about all that complexity with regards to data. I think what I want you to remember, the number of fully connected cars is strongly increasing. What has been also increasing is the complexity. We have more SEP owners in the market. They're especially from Asian markets, more and more technology providers coming in, but also the automotives are creating their own SEP portfolios. And we do see also in the standardization groups that automotives are participating in standards developing groups. And that is why we at IPlytics, of course, as a data provider say, to get hand and a grasp of that complexity, you need a multi-dimensional access to the patents that are declared, the patents that are pooled, the contributions and the companies that go to the meetings, the ownership understanding, and the landscape of the world of SEPs and connected technologies. That is what we do at IPlytics. So as I said in the beginning, connecting the world of patents, standards, and SEPs in one database that allows you to basically connect and marry together all that data. As I said, it's a complex world. And for that complex world, we have developed what we believe a simple solution and one access to all of that information. Patent pool data is increasingly important. I think that is also a trend that we see in the past year alone. We had, I think, 5 or 6 new pools leveraged. And another thing that is, of course, a big question in the space of SEPs, not all patents are pooled. Pooled patents are mainly assessed by the pool if they are essential or not. But many data that is out there on patents declared are not verified essential. So also there we have a solution to at least give you a first insight of how likely a patent is essential for a standard. Well, I think my last slide, and I'm sorry, to keep you guys remembering is there are growing challenges out there, and growing challenges need, of course, more profound decision making. A database and a tool is never the whole truth, but it, I think, can contribute to the truth, and it can contribute to decision making. And I think IP analytics still, in many of the, also when we talk today, especially of automotive industries, is an undervalued solution that should be used by many more. As you said, Mustafa, you want people to become leaders in patents. I think in order to become a leader, you have to be fully aware of what's going on, and you have to be fully aware how to understand the landscape and where we're living in. And I think that is something I want to keep you remembering, is that I wouldn't underestimate the value of having access to data and analytics, even though, of course, it will never, take over your job. It will enhance your job. It will make you or allow you to become a leader and making more profound decisions. May that be analyzing your portfolio, valuing your portfolio, improving your portfolio, helping in licensing negotiations. All of these use cases are important ones to think about. And of course, if you're interested in that, visit our website at IPlytics.com. And one last piece, Mustafa has a great podcast. Listen to that. I have one too. Mine is particular focused on SEP. So if that topic you want to know more, I also had a lot of automotive experts in the podcast on my, what I call the SEP virtual couch. So listen into that.
Yeah, there are lots of really good episodes in your podcast channel on Spotify. I strongly recommend to our audience to see how the big companies are managing their patent portfolio in terms of standard essential patents and licensing strategies of these SAPs. So there are lots of different topics to go into deep line of this niche topic. So I strongly recommend to listen. Of course, they can also listen and watch the same contents or different contents in your YouTube account, right?
Yes, we do have that also as a video podcast channel. You're right.
Exactly. So, Tim, that's really good. That's really impressive insights. And if I am working in an automotive industry, I will be scared, to be honest, because you must be very careful about your movements, your decisions, everything. Yeah. So these patent pools are one side. The licensing strategies front is another side. And I saw that yesterday, European Commission is also publishing new draft recommendation of transparent licensing of standard essential patents. It's the conversation, and it's going on. It's never stop, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially now, it's very heated discussions. Just to give background, the Commission draft documents were leaked, right? They were not published; they were leaked. And it's a regulation on how SEPs should be licensed, and there are some obligations on transparency in there. And I think most of the SEP owners feel that this regulation is not benefiting them very much, and that's where, of course, now the big discussion starts. How should regulation interfere or not interfere? How should incentives for both the patent owners that call themselves often the innovators, but also the automotives are innovators, obviously, and they're implementing technology and building technology innovation on top of that. And I think both should, foster innovation in general, and what framework allows both, sides of the table to do that. And I think that's a complex question. It's not easy to answer that question. We have, by the way, an event. Mustafa, you are also very much invited. Unfortunately, not in Berlin, but in Brussels on May 4th, which is about the SEP empirical study that we did write for the European Commission on SEPs and standards. So anyone who wants to visit that, there will be a lot of discussion. We will have experts from different industries and the European Commission there. If you want to join that heated discussion, be my guest and come to Brussels on May 4th.
Wow, super. To Brussels. To have some muscles and beer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Really fit. Yeah, I was born in Aachen, close to the Belgian border, and I'm a big fan of Belgian beer. So it's a good reason to go there. And SEPs, of course.
Of course. So there are lots of not startups, but they are scale up. They're producing electrical vehicle or autonomous vehicles, mostly in China and United States. And their patent portfolio numbers are not big, but As a suggestion, what do you think about a company which is starting producing and selling electrical vehicle now, mostly in European territory? What should they do? What they need to be careful about standard essential patents before entering these territories?
I mean, I think the first part is always education. They should educate themselves about what an SEP is, what an SEP license and royalty will look like. I mean, typically SEP owners target other big companies. So a startup or a small, medium-sized company is typically in the beginning under the radar. I wouldn't assume that they are contacted directly, but eventually in the near future they will. And that's what they have to prepare themselves for. I think one thing people have to be aware of, at some point you have to pay royalties, right? There's no way around it. If you want to have a car that is connected, and I think no one should build cars that are not connected, especially if you are an innovative startup, then you have to eventually pay, right? And that means you have to basically plan in those costs in your budgetary plans, right? You have to understand that there will be costs involved, even though your suppliers ship you those products. There is a cost on top of that for the patents, and that's, I think, things they have to be aware of, and educate themselves of what that means. There are, of course, information and data out there. There are databases like ours to use, but I think the first part is always education. Get more understanding of what's going on and why they should care. They have to pay. There's no way around it. That's a hard lesson to learn, but that is something they have to then digest.
The first part is aware, as you know, that education, aware of the situation, because it's all affected your cost structure. So be aware before your plans, not after launch of your product in different countries, because once you increase your sales number of your automotive, so these standard essential patent holders or patent pools will come to you. So right. No escape, right?
No, they will come after you or come to you. But I think, to me, if those companies are well advised to be also even more proactive with it, right? I mean, because you have to pay anyways, why not, start early, get an understanding of what it is, how much you would pay per whatever device you're selling. Typically, I can give them an idea that most of the times, if they are a pure supplier, like if they don't sell and build cars themselves, they will probably also not be targeted. But there is, for example, an automotive aftermarket. So, example, there are devices for tracking tolls on the Autobahn, right, or on roadways, or tracking logistic tracking of certain devices. In those cases, they are not a supplier. They are producing technology that is directly on the market, and then they will be approached by SEP owners directly. So that is something they have to just be aware of when they are shipping their products, that this will come.
Exactly. Today we are talking about automotive industry, but if you are, for example, if you are in the medical device industry and you are producing a connected medical devices with the connectivity features, of course you are on the radar. So you have to be careful about standard essential patents, right? What the other industries they need to be aware of?
I think, the medical device is one that is already there too, right? There's always, people keep saying the vision of remote surgeries, but also that has happened, obviously. There's sharing of images of patients, of information from patients. A lot of that right now happens within hospitals, so it's not necessarily a cellular technology case like 5G, maybe more like Wi-Fi and things like this. A lot of that is, again, also with visual and coding of that. Other industries are, of course, the manufacturing industry, the machines that connect to each other, the energy industry, the smart metering, the home appliance, right? Of course, today you go home you have your TV connected to your Wi-Fi, you have maybe even your refrigerator already connected, and then you tell Alexa to do whatever with all these devices. All that, of course, needs, in that case, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. also patented standards. So I think it will affect any industry, some more, some less. But if you think about the use cases of connectivity, they will be everywhere. So just another example, nicely, is there's a furniture company that implements the Qi standard. That's a wireless charging, inductive charging of your phone, right? You put your phone on a device without to plug in. And that is a standard subject to, I think, almost 2,000 patents already. And now a furniture company builds this inductive charging into their desk, right? And they have been subject to an SEP licensing now. And I would never imagine we would sell to a furniture company. So that just gives you an example how wide the spectrum of application can be.
Even maybe if you are producing a smart mirror enabling the charging or something like this furniture, so it is time to license these SAPs.
Oh yeah. So, and there's a pool for this wireless charging already, and everything is in place. So you have to be aware.
That's the furniture example. It's really good. I even imagined. Yeah. So there are not questions, but some thanks. Dhruv Sharma is thank you for insights and trends. No questions. Thank you, Dhruv. And Oğuzhan, I think he's from Turkey. Could we take the presentation? So he's asking, should we share? I will share my presentation, maybe if you want.
Yeah, of course. You can have mine too.
Of course, to our audience, you can always download different reports on IPlytics website. These are open, so you can just visit the website and visit the resources, and then they can always download the reports, right, Tim?
Oh yeah, all of our reports that are on the website are open and free of charge. So you can do that always.
Exactly. And Başak is from Home Appliance Industry. Thanks for the impressive and useful information. Yeah, so please, you can ask your questions and comments while we are chatting and discussing about this topic before closing. Maybe we can have a chat time and 7 or 8 minutes before closing. So we talked the licensing and the pools. How about the standards setting organizations? Yeah. So how the companies who are dealing with owning a standard essential patent in their company, what should be the starting point to deal with or to negotiate or having a relationship with standard setting organization? How is the system works? Maybe we can also discuss about this topic.
Yeah, it's a good topic also, especially for the automotive industry, because what we see in our data that more and more automotive companies are actually part of the standards development also. There is, for example, a standardization group. They call themselves the 5GAA, the 5G Automotive Association, and they specify standards for the implementation of 5G in the automotive use case. And from that organization, proposals also arrive. The general 5G standards development group, 3GPP and ATSI, and more and more, of the automotive people are also participating at the 3GPP, the third partnership project, which is developing, for example, 5G directly. How it works, you can imagine it like a technical conference. You go to meetings, typically monthly meetings, and different companies and also sometimes entities or public organizations present solutions and make technical proposals, basically, like how will 5G be working with networks and security. And then there's a technical proposal about it, let's say by Qualcomm. And then the other members of the standardization work can vote if that proposal should be accepted or not, right? And the best merit, or the proposal with the best technical merit will be selected, or typically a combination of proposals, which then makes the standard, right? And of course, as an automotive company, if you are contributing there and influence that process, you can influence and shape the standard and where it goes. And it also will influence, of course, the ownership of patents and where that goes, because obviously how you get a patented technology into a standard is with those technical proposals. They are secured by patents before they submit them, obviously. And that's, of course, how the whole game works. So I would also suggest, this is probably nothing for startups yet, But if you have a certain size, you can go to these open meetings. They're really open. The standards are open, but also those meetings are open. There's a membership fee, of course, but then you can go to those meetings. You can contribute, but you can also listen, or you can just understand how things work and where the technology is developing to. And that's, standardization is the starting point of the development of these great technologies.
So it's another investment decision that need to be given by the company, like the growing or building a very effective patent portfolio. It's an investment decision, of course, and going to these meetings and having discussions, negotiating, voting, and this is another investment decision that need to be given by the companies. So we have a kind of short question from Dhruv Sharma. Can you give an example of SEP for a layman to understand it, maybe?
Of course, sure. I mean, you can imagine you have an idea, an invention, right? And that invention is transmitting a package of information from A to B. That invention, will within a company be looked at and say, well, that's an interesting invention. That is actually an invention that relates to 5G. So what we will do is we will file a patent, right, to secure that invention. And then what we take the invention to the standards meeting, and it becomes part of 5G. When then the standards meeting your invention is proposed, it is accepted, and it becomes part of the standard, your patent on that invention now becomes an SEP, because it's a standard essential patent, which basically means anyone who implements the standard infringes your patent or is using your patented invention. And in that moment, your patent is an SEP, a standard essential patent. What is interesting about it, everyone who implements the standard is using your patented technology, but you are limited also. You cannot keep your patent as a monopoly to yourself. That invention, what is typically the definition of a patent, is not possible anymore. You have to provide a license, so you have an obligation to license, and you have a cap. You cannot ask for any money. It's a friend cap. It must be reasonable and fair and non-discriminatory. But that is really what makes then an SEP, right? It is essential to the implementation of a standard like 5G or 4G or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or RFID, NFC. All these technologies are standards.
Exactly. That's really, really good explanation. Or we are living in a ChatGPT era, so we can create a prompt for ChatGPT. Please explain me standard essential patents like I am a 10 years old child. So maybe it can also work.
It does. I tried those things. I even use that now in some of the webinars to make the complexity, but I use that a lot, just some insights from ChatGPT. I use that too. It speeds up the process. If you know what you're asking, it's a good program.
Exactly. So Drew likes your answer, so crystal clear. So
maybe it's still clearer.
Exactly. So we have another question for you, Tim. What's your view on the level of licensing? Should pools or SAP holders adapt their licensing level to the market they are targeting, or vice versa?
I mean, I think the level of licensing, where to license basically in the value chain, it really depends also on the industry. I think there are situations where it makes sense to also license to, let's say, tier 1 or tier 2 component manufacturers. There are situations, especially for IoT, where the module manufacturers are the larger companies than the end producers. Imagine, in IoT, you have a long tail of small companies. You would never want to chase those companies for money. As I said, companies like startups are under the radar. But if you license a module manufacturer, they're already licensed directly when they buy components, right? So there are pros and cons here. I think the complexity that we will see is that if in one industry licensing happens on all different levels in the value chain, then you have all these weird contracts that, some of my components in my product are already licensed by some companies, others are not, others I have to directly license. You have all this complexity in licensing contracts, which only benefits the lawyers who draft these contracts, but no one else. So I think important is simple solutions and clear solutions, and being open to change maybe something that has worked for one industry to another, right? I mean, maybe for the auto industry, OEM level was the right one to go, but maybe for IoT, it's not the right one. I think that's at least a critical question we have to ask ourselves. And hello, Yannis, by the way. Good to see you here.
Thank you for your explanation. I think it's a kind of good answer for Yannis' question. I think we don't have any further question. Maybe before closing, if there is any, I can directly address to you, Tim. So it was really lovely conversation, and as always, listening your insights was really good. I hope before your travel to Brussels, we can have a chance to drink something in Berlin.
Yeah, I think there's an IP Treffen in Berlin, right? There's something going on again. IP people meet, so why not? Let's do that.
That's right. So before closing, if you have any remarks or takeaways, be my guest, and then we can close.
I mean, my final remark would be we are living in a constantly changing world that is complex, and patent data is complex. I think you, Mustafa, gave great examples of statistics and how to read them. I gave those. And understanding complexity in the world needs tools, needs data. So, consider that in your decision making. That's my advice.
So information is the key, and if you want to create an information, you need the reliable data. So the data is here. So thank you, Tim, and hope to see you again in different environment or events in Berlin or other countries.
Perfect. Let's do that, Mustafa. You take care. Have a good day and happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. So that was a really good conversation with Tim Pohlmann, who is co-founder of IPlytics company, specialized in standard essential patents, data analytics. So thank you for your also questions and remarks in the chat section. I saw a very good audience, the number of audience who are with us during the live session. So we will continue to organize these patent insights bi-weekly in different topics, in different industries, in different IP management, especially the patent management, creating a patent strategies in different fields, and also patent trends in different industries and technological segments. So if you want to be, a part of this community, content-wise channel, please subscribe and follow us on our Patent Insights channels. So I would like to also congratulate all of your Easter from today, and hope to meet again in 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, in our 4th Patent Insight Videocast. I hope you have enjoyed and get any comprehensive information on today, and have a nice day and have a nice Easter holiday, and we will see each other in 2 weeks. Have a nice day.